everyone, and thank you for joining us for this portion of Coyote Football Media Day. We are starting this press conference with our 3 team captains. The man on your left is our all-conference left tackle Alex Jensen, a 6th-year senior from Plymouth, Minnesota. Alex started as a tight end here way back in 2017 before converting to tackle. Since making that switch, he has started all 28 games at the position. In addition to being on the All-Valley team last year, Jensen was also voted to the league's All-Academic team. Centered is our All-America long snapper, Dalton Godfrey, also a 6th-year player, but from Cedar Falls, Iowa. This will be Dalton's 5th season as the team's long snapper. He is a 2-time All-Conference honoree. Last year, in addition to being named an All-American for the first time, Dalton was named an Academic All-American and maintains a 4.0 GPA. On the right is All-Conference inside linebacker Brock Mogensen, a 5th-year junior from Farmington, Minnesota. Brock is a 3-year starter who has racked up 180 tackles in 26 games. He led the Coyotes in tackles in the spring of 2021 and was South Dakota's 2nd leading tackler last season behind Jack Cochran. All 3 of these players have received numerous preseason honors, and just this morning, Hero Sports placed all 3 of our captains on its preseason All-America team. So let's open the floor to your questions. Please wait for the microphone to reach you before asking your questions so that those listening online can hear it.
Brock, so that position next to you is still kind of up in the air. For playing style-wise, like what type of linebacker would work best next to you to complement their abilities?
So I kind of played that position last year, so it's an inside linebacker kind of type, but a guy who can also run and cover. We got a lot of guys there that are battling for position. Stephen Hillis is out there, Jonathan Jonas is out there, Jakari Starling, and we like to think we're all mixed in. Everybody can learn the position, so we're all kind of able to play that position as well.
And Brock, for you, kind of now filling in Jack's spot, it's a big shoes to fill. How do you feel, what have you been working on to try and fill in that spot, and how do you feel you're doing so far?
The main thing is being a more vocal leader. Jack was a great vocal leader, but doing that and then knowing the whole defense in and out, got to know what the D-line are doing, what the back end of us is doing. So I think I need to take some steps in that aspect, just knowing what people are doing and being able to communicate to everybody, but it's been fun so far.
And Dalton, being a captain of the special teams unit, what does that distinction mean to you?
It's something I was kind of hoping for. I'd try and lead the guys as best I can, no matter what position I play, try and make everyone better. The good thing about being a specialist is you kind of get to see everything going on and observe, and so you kind of help out where you can, teach where you can, and being a 6th-year guy, try and lead them in the right direction towards a better culture.
Do you know who you're going to be snapping to yet?
I do not. No, not quite. Nice try.
And Alex, I know Joey's been playing some center now. I guess how's he coming along there?
He's been doing a great job. He hasn't played that in any games yet, but he's really been building that confidence so far throughout camp with snapping the ball and being consistent with it.
And Dalton, with the changes at punter and kicker, how are you trying to help the other guys? I know obviously you just said you don't know who you're snapping to, but how are you trying to help those other guys along in terms of just getting used to the cadences and holding on extra points and things like that?
So it's pretty tough to replace a guy like Brady, obviously, is what we're talking about doing. What I'm trying to do is trying to show them a few things that worked for Brady that they might want to adopt, a few things that worked for Lorber that they might want to adopt, but at the same time, they got to keep doing the things that got them here. They're good enough to get here. They're good enough players to play. So trying to get them comfortable in the plays that we're running, the scheme that we're running, just repetition after repetition. It's the same thing, so keep it rolling.
And Alex, I know that you guys have position moved around, but for the most part, the offensive line stayed pretty much the same guys. How much have you guys progressed along in terms of spring practices now in the fall camp in terms of blocking both for the pass and the run?
Yeah, I think as a group we've really pushed ourselves here in the last spring and off season. We also have guys, younger guys that are competing for it too, and really a lot of spots are up in the air right now, and everybody's just doing their part to keep having that good competition within the group to keep driving us forward.
Alex, I was talking to some of the other guys on the offense, and they were saying that going up against the defense, they might not be the biggest, but they're really fast and they still hit hard. What have you seen on the defensive front, trying to block them in practice from the defense?
Some of them are pretty strong and fast. They also have really good motors. I mean, they're always flying to the ball. You can't take a rep off. You can't ever just think you have them blocked. You got to finish every play with them. So that's really something that I've noticed. And just on Brock's end, leading those guys, he does a great job with keeping them going on all the drives and just being that motivator out there for them.
Brock, just today on defense, it seemed like you guys were carrying a lot of turnovers near the end of practice. Just being able to celebrate with the guys, does that help build the team camaraderie?
Yeah, that's a great opportunity for us as defense. Like you guys saw, we get excited when you get a turnover. And that's a big play in a game, getting our offense back on the field because they're performing very well right now. So we can see that when we're creating those turnovers, creates huge opportunities for our team.
I guess for Brock and Alex, last time this program made the playoffs, didn't get back the following year. What about this group is going to allow it to build off of that playoff bid and elevate it even further?
I think it really just started with this off season. Guys buying into what they're doing in the weight room, what they're doing in conditioning, and really building that culture that, hey, we didn't get, last time we were in the same situation, we didn't get there, but taking the next step off of it and realizing the opportunity that we have.
Going off Alex, I think in the past few years, our team has became closer, and I think that helps a lot with the team camaraderie. So knowing each player, knowing your position, knowing the offensive players, knowing the defensive players, you all come together and then you aspire to be in the playoffs and aspire to be national champions. So that team camaraderie really helps.
Anything more for these guys? One or two more? Okay.
I'll just add one for Alex. I know you obviously don't have Nate coming into the season with that injury. Do you still feel pretty confident with the rest of your running? You have a pretty deep running back room. I know he was the one that kind of emerged the most, but do you feel like the rest of that group is going to be able to pick up the slack for not having him in that backfield?
I think that whole room of running backs, everybody's pretty confident in them. All of them, every time they're back there, they're running hard, making plays. So really, I think the whole group as a whole, really, I don't think they're picking up any slack. I think they're going to be able to do just well.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. This is your 30th season as a head college football coach, which is an amazing milestone, so congratulations to you. That longevity has produced 215 wins, which makes Coach Nielsen one of just 11 active NCAA head coaches at any level who have surpassed 200. At the FCS level, his win total is fourth most among 123 coaches. Of course, Coach Nielsen's success has come at all levels. He is a 3-time National Coach of the Year, a 2-time National Champion head coach, and was Missouri Valley Football Coach of the Year in 2015. This is his 7th year with the Coyotes. He has led South Dakota to the playoffs twice. Last year, USD placed 3rd in the Valley, its highest finish, and Coach Nielsen brought playoff football back to the Dakota Dome for the first time in 35 seasons. Coach, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Brian. First of all, thanks for being here. I'm 30 years is a long time, but as I told our guys first day of practice, honestly, I've never been more excited about a football team and a season than I am headed into to this fall. We've got a great group of young men. You just had a chance to hear from 3 of them. Not not just great football players, but outstanding students, tremendous representatives of this program and this university, and we've got a tremendous number of guys just like them out there in the 110 that we've got practicing. And they're a group that's very focused. We had a great off season coming off of that loss in the playoffs to Southern Illinois. We had a great lifting cycle in January, February, and March. Good spring practice session. Maybe the best summer training that I've been a part of, and have, as a result, have hit fall camp running. It's funny how COVID has affected rosters. I look and I think we've only got like 8 or 9 seniors, that are playing their last year. Might be another one. It's hard to keep track now with the way eligibility is. So we got a lot of guys that still have a lot of eligibility remaining, and a lot of young guys that are going to contribute this year. I truly believe we'll be a deeper team in many spots than we've ever been. At the same time, we're going to need that depth because it's no secret we're facing, an unbelievably tough schedule, particularly right out of the gate. When we're going to play a really good Kansas State game in week 1, and then, over the course of the next 4 weeks, depending on which poll you look at, we're going to play the number 1, number 2, and number 3 team in the country in preseason rankings. And our guys are excited about that opportunity. From a program standpoint, they don't come here to play just anybody. They come here because they want to play the very best, and we're going to get a chance to do that this year from week 1 on.
Questions?
Hi, Coach Nielsen, Eric Bean with the Yankton Daily Press in Dakota. Great to meet you in person. Just first off, having Carson in the system for as long, and also Coach Slavke playing with you and his experience as offensive coordinator, does that help bring along Aiden and Sergio just as far as learning the playbook early into fall camp?
I think probably the way I can answer that question is anytime you have an experienced quarterback, and even though Carson's really young, he's got quite a few games under his belt now as a starter between last year and the spring season. Those guys have the ability to watch him. And, as they're picking up the offense, to a certain extent, it's like having a second coach in the room. And Carson, over the last year, has really not just gained confidence, but really gained a understanding offensively of what we're doing. He'll be the first to admit that the first couple years he was still learning. I think right now he's a guy that not just runs our offense, he leads our offense. And we've got some talent behind him, which we're still working to sort out a little bit. We'll be dumping a lot of repetitions in those guys over the next week to see how that sorts out, and trying to build confidence in those guys being able to operate our system as well.
As far as the schedule goes, you have maybe your hardest games of the season all bunched up together. Do you prefer to play it that way, or would you prefer to have a couple weeks between those types of games?
Well, I prefer to have them all at home, honestly. If there's one thing that makes that season really difficult is that we've got three of those games on the road. When we're opening with 2 games on the road at 2 very difficult places to play, down at Manhattan, Kansas, and out in Missoula, Montana. And so not only do you have to play well, you got to play well on the road. And and then we get into the conference schedule and we open with, North Dakota State and South Dakota State. We've got a week off in between those 2 games, which will be good. But at the same time, you're going to have to play your best football at the beginning of the year. And so we've we've really, this first week in training camp has been a really physical week. We wanted to do that early. It's a way that you try to evaluate guys and their ability to contribute in the league. And then, as we get a little closer to week one, we'll back down in some of that area to make sure that we're healthy as we can be. But it's not going to be a deal where we use the first couple of non-league games to ease into the season. We've got to be ready to go.
You guys were maybe a couple plays away from beating Kansas last year. How can that FBS game at the beginning of the season sort of set the tone for the rest of the year?
Yeah. I think anytime you play those kinds of games, what you want to do is you want to be competitive. And with the exception of the Oklahoma game in 2019, as you look at those games, our guys have been competitive. We've competed. We still got a few guys on our roster that played at K-State in 2018 in a game that was really competitive. Obviously, last year down at Kansas, having an opportunity to win that game till the very end. Hopefully it builds some confidence in your guys to go down there and compete at a high level. And K-State's going to have a very, very good football team. Some people are projecting them to be kind of an outside contender for the Big 12 championship. They've got a lot of returning talent. So it's certainly going to be a test for us. And it's going to require us to be a really sound, physical, and a good football team week one.
Coach, with Nate's injury in the backfield, I know it's a pretty deep and talented room. I know you've kind of done the running back by committee thing before, but would you kind of prefer somebody emerge and become kind of the bell cow the way he did a year ago, or do you think you can be as successful with the running back by committee instead?
Yeah, in that position for us, wherever I've been, we've always had, at least two guys, because in a single back offense, that position's going to carry the football 40-plus times a game, and as a result, you're going to need to be able to divide those carries out. Nate really came on, mid-season last year, going into week one. We probably would have said, hey, this is a guy that we might redshirt, but he just got better and better as the year went on and got himself into the lineup. And so the injury to him, we were disappointed when that happened. At the same time, Shamari Lawrence, who was playing a lot the first 3 weeks, he got hurt against Missouri State, and we missed him for the rest of the season, and now he's back. So, there's a little bit of a trade-off there where we've got a healthy Shamari Lawrence to kind of balance that loss of Nate. Travis Tice, a guy that not just is a really good running back for us, but one of our true leaders offensively, is a guy that we know we can lean on, and I feel really confident, with Shamari and a guy like Mike Mansoray, who had some good games of his own, having the kind of depth in that position that we're going to have to take us through the season.
So bouncing back to the last game last season, the end of the season, I know it's not something that you guys really wanted. It's not the way you guys wanted to end. Is there any sort of aspect, going into this year, or one or two aspects that you guys are really trying to hone in on to hopefully, push this team further and get deeper into the postseason?
Yeah, first of all, I think, when you make the playoffs, our guys understand what it took to get there, that's kind of step number one. You make the playoffs, your guys understand, what it takes to get there, and also the level of play that it's going to take to keep winning once you get there. And our guys, feel that, hey, it's not just about making the playoffs, it's about making the playoffs and being in a position to make a run in the playoffs. That's the goal that they've got as a football team, and there's some things that I think from a overall standpoint we're ahead of than we were a year ago. There's a couple of areas that we've got to keep developing some of our younger players even though I think we've got the right younger players there to be able to do that. And that's what really the next 3 weeks going to be all about, is getting us up to as high a level of performance as we can get to, and developing the kind of depth that we need to hit the front end of this season running.
Coach, when I was talking to Carson on practice, you mentioned that with the offense returning as many players as they are, that there's a lot of confidence from Carson and the rest of the offense. Is that something you've noticed in practice, as a confident group out there?
A very business-like group. With the exception, we lost one starter in the O-line. Brett Sampson at tight end, although Austin Goring played a lot. Some people would consider him to be a starter, and then, we lose the one starter at wide receiver. That group brings a lot of experience, a lot of games. They're a very business-like group. They've demonstrated that on the field. So I think there is, a level of confidence with that group. We're trying to get that same level of confidence now in some of our twos on the offensive side of the football. And we've got some work to do there. But, again, that'll be a real focus this week in camp, along with doing some situational work to get those twos more and more repetitions.
A minute ago, mentioned the making the playoffs, kind of knowing what it takes to get there. Obviously, back in 2017, you had a team that won a playoff game, was maybe a few plays from getting to a quarterfinal. Other than the fact that I know that team lost a lot more going into the next year, what will be different about this group that allow it to hopefully build on, sustain, and elevate from that playoff berth that wasn't the case in 2017?
I think. I look back on that, and I think there's two subtle differences with those framework of those teams. We've had better continuity of, even though we had a great group of captains a year ago and senior leaders, we've had better continuity in that leadership group from last year to this year than maybe we had from 17 to 18. You heard from three of those guys. We got a bunch of other guys that are providing great leadership for our football team, and feel really good about where that aspect is at in our program right now. And then I think the other thing you heard is from the captains, and this is a really close football team now. Much closer than probably we were as a football team back in that transition from 17 to 18. Guys that, like each other, playing hard for each other. And I think that helps you from one year to another with continuity and level of success. And this is a team that's got some really, really high goals right now, and they're going to get a chance to prove themselves, against the country's very best.
Working Sam now, what are some more competitive position battles, I guess, going on?
Yeah. Well, let me just start just quick. In the secondary right now, we've got, we got a lot of depth compared to what we've had in the past. That's always been a position where we've been a little bit thin the last couple of years. I look at that corner position, and we've got, I think, 4 or 5 guys that have starting experience coming back with Dayron McKinney and Miles Harden. Guys like Cam Tisdale, Trey Jackson, a couple of other younger guys that are competing really hard there as well. Jalen Holman, Shaheed Barrows. Some real depth there. Safety position, the same way. JoJo Gaines. You've got, as a guy that started every game for us last year, Isaiah McDaniel, a guy that's started games for us. Add into that, a transfer like Josh Manchagaya, who started a lot of games in the league, and then Dennis Shorter and Tevin McKelvey, guys that have played a lot of football for us. So that's a position group, that those guys are competing every day, but a position group that's going to allow us to play a lot of guys back there, which is really good. Up front, defensively, we've got two, I think, all-conference caliber guys, and Brendan Webb and Nick Gaze. But there's a lot of guys in that position group that are going to be competing for playing time too, with the returning guys that we had, and then a couple of transfers that we added to that group. And so, those two positions on defense, positions where you like to have the ability to play a lot of guys, we're going to have the ability to play a lot of guys this year. Offensively, a lot of competition right now to be that kind of 7th, 8th offensive lineman. In our rotation, a lot of competition in the receiver room. We've got Carter Bell, who, has proven himself in the league, and a guy like Wes Elador that's played a lot of football for us. But after that, we've got a bunch of guys that are competing there. And so those positions that we've got guys competing for playing time, some of them will end up getting more than others, but that's also going to establish some depth for us.
You mentioned Austin. Obviously, Brett made his biggest impact in the receiving game. Do you expect Austin to be that guy, or would you think that another player is? Yeah,
Austin's really a complete tight end. He's bigger and more physical than Brett from a blocking standpoint, but he's also a really good route runner. Catches. He may not stretch the field vertically quite as well as Brett, but we've got a couple of other guys there, J.J. Galbraith, who played some last year, that gives us every bit of that from a receiving standpoint. And in our two tight end game, you're going to see him with Austin a lot.
Coach, how has Brock kind of transitioned into that lead spot and that Mike spot kind of in the linebacking core after losing Jack?
Yeah, good question. We moved Brock. We moved Brock to the Mike backer, the position that Jack played last year, from what we call our will backer position. And that position really is kind of the quarterback of our defense. And, Brock talked about this himself, having to take a more vocal leadership role in that position, getting the front moved and things checked. And he's doing a great job. He's accepted that responsibility and really run with it, and a guy that everybody on our defensive football team is looking to right now for to be that kind of leader.
And then how have things kind of gone in the kicking competition? That kicker and punter obviously losing two valuable things at those positions. How has that competition kind of been?
Yeah, I jokingly, said you don't realize, how lucky you are to have a punter like Brady Scott until he leaves. For the last 4 years, we've walked him on the field, and even if it's a bad punt, it's 40-some yards, so we've tried to address that in a couple of ways. From a punting standpoint, we did bring in a graduate transfer, John Bickle, who's transferring in from Wheaton College, where he was a 4-year player for them at the Division III level. So brings a lot of experience. We also have a very talented freshman, Tyler Ebel, out of the state of Wisconsin. If you were at practice today, you saw those guys hit some punts. They can really punt the football. Eddie Ogamba also punts. So we've got 3 guys competing there. Been real happy with all 3 of them in that role. And then at the kicking position, Eddie, who was in our program a year ago, transferred from Iowa State. Without question, probably the strongest leg of any kicker that I've ever had the opportunity to work with and coach. You know, a guy that can kick 60-yard field goals, got great lift. Feel good about his progress. And then we have another transfer, Will Leyland, who transferred from Temple to give us even more depth at that kicking position. And he's a very good kicker himself. So we feel good about the guys that we've got. You know, we'll, eventually make some decisions here as we get a little later in the preseason in that who's going to be the guys that step on the field that first game for us in those positions. But I think we've got enough talent and having, a quality leader and long snapper like Dalton, where all of those operations, whether it's a field goal or a punt start, is a great place to build around. And it's funny, 30 years, I think Dalton is the first, I can't think of one, first time I've ever had a specialist be a team captain. So that tells you a little bit about how unique that situation is.
Obviously you brought in Aiden via the transfer portal, son of an NFL quarterback. Found out last year, obviously, you want to have how important that depth of the quarterback position is, but do you think he kind of also serves as a bit of a push for Carson? I know he's a starter, but he kind of also maybe push Carson a little more too, having a guy like that in the quarterback room?
Well, I think number one, Carson's always pushing himself. He's that kind of guy. He wants to get better. He's there's lots of nights here when, I'm leaving at 9:30, 10 o'clock, and, Carson's in there watching film by himself. And that just shows you a little bit, I think, of where he's at from a standpoint of trying to get better. But, that position right now in college football it's always been a really, really important position. I think it has become one of the most difficult positions to have, where you have a number 2 quarterback that is a guy that can truly come in and operate your program, and that's one of the things that the transfer portal has kind of done. And it's a position where only one guy plays, and obviously all those guys want to play. And so what we wanted to do, and this is why we brought Aiden into our program, is we wanted to, build the depth in that quarterback room and make sure that we had competition and that we're in a position where, we've got a second guy, and, it'd be nice to even have a third guy that you have confidence in, that if you get into a situation where those guys got to step on the field, not just that they can help you win a football game, but everybody around them knows that they can win a football game. And so we're dumping on, it's hard, a transfer quarterback, first preseason camp. He's like a freshman. He's got to learn the system. He's got to learn all the intricacy, the kind of the unique things about the system. And so Aiden's learning that. Sergio's learning that. Cole Stenstrom, our other quarterback, is still a really young guy. He's still learning that. And, our hope here we know what Carson can do over the next week or so. We'll invest a lot of reps and game situation type things into those other guys and let them develop, and that will sort out moving forward.
Anybody else?
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks very much.